All right, welcome back to the Unqualified for Space podcast with me, Michael Hodges. Today I have as my guest Miss K10, as she's known on Twitter, and she's one of the Third Row Tesla podcast members. So if you haven't watched that show, then I don't know what you're doing with your life. But welcome to the show, Kristen. How you doing today?
Thank you. Good. Thank you for having me on. It's a good day.
It is. It is a good day for sure. Any day we're alive, right?
Yes, very true.
So I like to start off every episode of this podcast with a question as to what is important or if it's not important to you about space.
So what is important to me about space? Space is big, very broad topic.
Mhm.
Uh, well, it's fascinating. I mean, there's so much out there that's undiscovered, and I think that we should be exploring it a lot more than we are. I don't know. It's, I mean, we look to the skies and there's so much that we see that I don't know, just getting out there and exploring it. That's interesting to me, but let's hope it gets further than where we're at right now or further than the Apollo missions.
Yeah, we should definitely be way past what the Apollo is at this point, but sadly, we're not, for some reason.
Yeah. 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 And God, I don't know if you want to mention the pandemic, but it's just like the timing is the worst timing, right? When Crew Dragon is getting ready to launch.
Yeah, I know. And I'm glad that they're still at least saying May, but who knows if that's going to slip. I
Yeah.
mean, hopefully it doesn't slip, but I mean, I'd
So did they
almost,
change from April to May?
yeah, they changed to mid-May at the earliest.
Oh, man, that stinks.
Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
I would hope that they might even enact the quarantine procedures that they generally always go through to begin with, but maybe even make it a little bit longer. That way they could still have the mission. I don't know if that's a possibility or if that's something they'd agree to, but who knows?
It's all interesting. And then I was reading something today about NASA's going to look at, is it the Artemis program that they're going to do a complete rundown of
Mhm.
everything on it right now? I don't know. That was interesting.
Yeah, they're starting a inspector general position to look at how they spent all the money and things like that.
The timing is the worst. They're like, we need a little bit of extra money. How about right when you're ready to go? We're just going to like break it. That's
Yeah,
so
well,
bad. Oh, the timing is so bad.
yeah. I mean, I feel for them. I really do. Like the entire program. Like NASA. I love NASA. They're like one of my favorite people. When it comes to space governmental organizations. Um, but the way they handle money is just asinine at times. When you look at other companies like Rocket Lab or SpaceX or whoever, that they can do things for a
Yeah.
third of the amount of money but that's just the way government works. So nothing new about
Yeah,
that.
definitely. Committees and committees, protocols. That's so true. Elon, I think, went to the Senate a while back and he had talked about the efficiency of the spending and just how, not to be arrogant or anything like that, just to break it down, how much more they could save if they actually were efficient with their funds. But you're
Hmm.
right. That's big government and money for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Makes you wonder where it all went.
it's just how government works, and there's no change in that, at least right now that I know of. But maybe it'll change. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
because I know the launch tower for SLS, they built one, and it cost something on the order of
Uh-huh.
like you know hundreds of millions of dollars or something for one launch tower.
I wonder how much SpaceX's launch tower was. Do you know?
I would imagine it's not anything near what that one costs.
No. Yeah, Elon is super like thrifty. He's not cheap, he's thrifty. He uses just as good materials, but he's just found the better way around it to get it done.
And
Yeah,
that's
that's for
something I
sure.
figured it might be
SpaceX.
an interesting question to pose to you here is I know like we're both, big like Elon fans and we follow a lot of things that he does and you actually have been able to interview him before, which is awesome. I love those interviews that you guys did.
Yeah.
Do you
Thank you.
do you
That was so cool. Yeah.
yeah, it must have been an amazing experience, I'm sure, to be right there, especially in the
Yeah.
house that y'all were in. That was an awesome place.
Oh, yeah, and I love Gene Wilder too on top of it and Willy Wonka. It was surreal for sure. It was so cool.
But do you see private industry as the way to space instead of governmental organizations?
I think that Elon has paved quite a path for it to be like that. Ironically, though, the Space Force has started up and things like that. So there's just
Mhm.
more of a ceiling, I think, that SpaceX has to break through, which is odd. But I do think that it is definitely hyped and revved up the space program, whereas we were watching it just draw out and bleed out, which was really sad financially and not get anywhere. And we're taking our astronauts over to Russia to fly them up. So yeah, I think it's definitely needed.
Yeah, I mean, I hope. I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it. I hope that the Starliner succeeds because I'm a fan of all things space, not necessarily just like one, version. Whereas I might follow one
Yeah,
closer than others. I'm a fan of all of it. So I hope that Starliner succeeds, but
that is good.
I don't know
Yes.
that based on current issues if it will, especially when they had a software problem that could have been easily fixed if they had done their testing. I
Oh
mean,
my God. Isn't that par for the course for them? Back with the 737,
yeah.
like that's kind of a big issue throughout the whole company. I think they need to revamp that.
Yeah, and I just think that there's so many people with their hands in it, which I mean every organization has it, even private like SpaceX does. I mean, there's so many people with their hands in it, but
Yeah.
efficiency and testing is how things are different because SpaceX does the tests, Boeing pays for the tests to be approved. So it's two different ways
Yeah.
of going about it. And I would imagine with space you'd rather actually do the tests because then if something
Yeah.
fails, rather just being like, yeah, here's a check for $30 million. That test is good. You know, that's
Yeah.
just the way
That
things are
is
done.
crazy. Yeah. It is it is really interesting, and I think I'd have to say there's so much precedent for Boeing. It seems like they can just walk right in, even though I mean they've definitely been slapped down with these problems with Starliner. But it
Hmm.
just seems like SpaceX has really had to like put up the extra effort and funds and work just to prove themselves. So, which is good. I mean that the astronauts are taken care of and the safety of it all, but it'll be nice once they're over this hump. Once we finally
Yeah.
get Crew Dragon up, and I think it'll be a big thing for them. But yeah, I'm definitely pro for Starliner and whoever else wants to get out there and get up there. I think it's competition in a tear down way, a demeaning way is definitely not needed. We need to be building each other up just to get out there. It's incredibly a lot of effort and hardship to get out there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely not like driving your Model 3 down the road. I mean, it's nothing even remotely close like that. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
one thing I'm actually really excited for is to
Definitely. Yeah.
see the Blue Origin's rocket go
Yeah.
up against the SpaceX Starship and all that and Super Heavy. I think the rocket being as big as it is, it'll provide an awesome spectacle to see kind of who would win in that game with like the real heavy boosters because it's like Starship Super Heavy, the New Glenn rocket and New Shepard that they have, and then SLS all competing for the same thing. I think that would just be beneficial for space.
Yeah, definitely if they can I think it'd be nice if there was more leeway that they could just launch, but they have to go through NASA. So yeah, it definitely is. I didn't realize they named some of those rockets after some of the astronauts, like
Yep.
Shepard and Glenn, like you were saying, right?
Hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah, they've done everything off of names of the original Gemini and Mercury guys and all that.
That is really cool. Yeah, my dad worked on some of those rockets out there where he was at. They tested the SLS out where my dad used to work out in Hall. The one that exploded, the one that they tested like a year ago
Hmm.
and it exploded. Yeah, that's where my dad worked. It was
Oh,
crazy.
awesome. I mean, not
Yeah.
awesome that it exploded, but
Yeah.
awesome that he
Yeah.
that he worked out
Not
there.
awesome that exploded. Yeah, but he did work out there. I just thought I grew up thinking everyone's parents just worked in aerospace because everyone around me I went to school with, they did. So, but it's not the norm.
No, yeah, I wish it was the norm. That'd be an awesome time to be in, but then nothing else would get done, I guess.
Yeah, true.
So I guess you don't necessarily have a background in aerospace, but your dad worked in it. But being being as that, would you go to space if you had the opportunity?
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, I think it'd be really cool to go to space. I think it'd be very exciting. I wouldn't want to go on the first couple missions, and I would really want to make sure that I would pull my weight if I went. I wouldn't just want to go. I mean, I guess you could go as a customer just to see it, kind of like what is that guy's name? That Japanese billionaire who was
Oh,
saying something about taking just a.
yeah, he
I want to
bought
say
the,
Miza.
yeah, I can't remember his name for the life of me for some reason right now, but he's doing the whole lunar orbit on a SpaceX Starship. So
Yeah, which is super cool. But I mean, here we are like in lockdown in our houses and everyone's getting like stir crazy and it's been like what, a week.
mhm. Yeah, for
And
most
that's some
people.
tight quarters for a long time. I don't know, I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park where people just walk on there, because can you imagine being on that ship and like somebody just starts having panic breakdowns because they totally didn't think through what this
Hmm.
is going to be. I wouldn't. You watch those movies, get like, what is it, space mania, space crazy,
Space dementia.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be, yeah, that would not be fun to deal with those kind of people. You probably have one room designated as a sound room to type people up. That's so bad.
Have a room where you go in and scream or whatever, just get it out, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
he was proposing taking, I think it's 12 people on the ship with him, and he
Yeah.
was going to have like painters and artists and dancers for some reason. I mean, I don't know what you're going to dance about in microgravity. I guess maybe when you get back or something. I don't know, but
Yeah. Just to give an impression, a raw impression of space
yeah.
to these people, that they could portray it in their media or their form.
Hmm.
It is a beautiful artistic idea, and I'm sure some people have the discipline to do it, but yeah, I don't know. And then I think he was going to change it to going with possible women that would make good girlfriends or
Hmm.
something like that.
Yeah, he posted
Wasn't
looking
he
for a
advertising that
girlfriend.
game show he's going to take girls?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And then that was flashed out or done with.
I think he
Yeah,
got
so
a
I don't
lot
know
of
where it is
flack
right
for
now.
that.
I mean,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
he got a lot of flack for advertising for a girlfriend for the moon. I mean, I don't know how well that was thought out before he posted that, but
Yeah. I think maybe it was, I mean, I don't know the man. He seems very sincere, but maybe just a rebound kind of move. Like, I'm on rebound right now. So,
could be. Who knows? But
yeah.
so we established that you would go to space, but would it depend on how far you'd have to go? Like, would it only be like
Hmm.
a Virgin Galactic type deal where you're just like going in the low Earth, like just the upper regions of the atmosphere, and then coming back down? Would you go to Mars? Is there like a distance limit for you?
Wow. I'm open to all of it. The vertex seems really practical for just a everyday person like me. If I was more trained in a science, I would definitely want to go to Mars. But I think you have to go with the mindset that you may not come back, right? Watching all
Hmm.
those sci-fi movies. Um, I wish we could make things like Stargates. That would be so cool.
Yeah.
Then we could go really far. But yeah, I'm open to it. I think sometimes we've dreamt so much in these movie reality, non-realities, these fictions, that we try to impose them into reality. We're not quite there yet, but yeah, it would be cool to go.
Yeah, I've asked that question to probably most of my guests, and I've gotten different answers. But
Hmm.
my last one with Danielle, she asked me if I'd be willing to go because I have kids and stuff, and I said
Uh,
100%, like
oh,
no question, because it's something I've always wanted to do. And she was curious onto the psychology
yeah.
aspect of that, and I said I think it would be like inspiring to them if I were to do something like that. So that's one reason why
Mm,
I'd love to go, but then also
that
probably
is really
inspire
cool.
them.
Yeah, what movie did I just watch with I can't remember the name of the actor, where he was called to go because his father was like on the outer limits of a different galaxy and they were receiving a signal.
Is
and
that
his father was like had gone crazy.
Ad Astra?
I think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. With God, I can see faces and I can't. Brad Pitt?
Yeah,
No. Yes. No.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes me think of that with the children and stuff like that. But that's interesting. Yeah. I mean,
So,
it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have a passion and let your children see that you live for something for sure.
yeah, I've always been a space nerd, self-proclaimed. So,
That's cool. Yeah.
so since we were talking about movies, there, you brought up that movie, which I have to say, it's one movie that like hurts me a little bit on the inside every time I watch it.
Yeah.
Because of some of the, and I'm not a physicist or scientist by any means, but I've read a lot about different things. Is there any movies about science fiction or space or anything like that that you watch that just like makes you cringe a little bit, or is there any that you love?
These are cringeworthy ones. There's always those. I'm really bad at the names of movies. There's always those ones where it's like the vessel is like out there and it's haunted, and like
Mhm.
the death trap. It's almost like a horror movie. I mean, some of those are actually good, but some of them are cringeworthy. They're almost like the bad zombie movies. Some of
Yeah.
them, but I like a lot of different movies. I am not one to really rewatch movies often, so I see it and sometimes I forget the name of the title, but I remember it what happened. I watched a lot of TV series. I grew up watching a lot of Star Trek.
Hmm.
I watched all the Stargates. Um, God, I watched a lot of different stuff. If you name it, I probably watched it. But I like a lot of them. I don't know. There is some cringeworthy ones. I guess it depends on the director. Like some of the stuff is taken off Asimov stuff, which makes it really good. Um, and that new Asimov series is coming out. Did you see that? Apple
Yeah, I
TV is going
saw
to be
that.
putting that out.
Looking
That's going to
forward
be
to that.
fun.
Yeah, should be a
Yeah, they just
good
started
show.
production of it, but they had to stop it, and they're producing it. So, yeah, it will be good when they start up again.
Did you watch The Expanse at all on Amazon?
Yeah.
Did you like that show?
I watch the Mars Colony or Expanse.
Well, I've seen both, but The Expanse for this particular question. Did you watch all that?
Oh, it's. I believe I've seen that one. Yeah, I believe so. I watched so much. Yeah, I believe I liked it. I like all that stuff. It makes me
Mhm.
think. I can't watch something if it doesn't make me think, doesn't entertain. That's why you watch to be entertained. But yeah, I like things that make me think a little bit. Fringe science stuff, that's
Mhm.
what a lot of it is. Kind of like how they think they have a tricorder made that, they've made one supposedly. But yeah.
Yeah,
Did you
that's
watch the show Fringe at all?
no. I've heard a lot about it, but I've never watched it. I probably need to get on that because I've heard
It's
it's really
really
good.
fun. You probably do. Well, if you like, I mean, the idea of space and dimensions, that's what Fringe is about, all these
Hmm.
different dimensions. So it's kind of fun like that.
Have you ever seen Interstellar?
Yes, I've seen that a few times. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's
That's a good one.
probably
Everybody loves Interstellar.
yeah, yeah. I think everyone loves it for different reasons, but like I love it for the physics of it, which is probably the last reason that most people like it. I'm sure, but I mean, it's got great visuals and all the other
Mm,
stuff. But I was talking about this on a previous episode that I think I love the movie. It's probably besides Apollo 13, it's my favorite space movie. Um, but they almost
nice.
went too heavy into the physics for most people because people watch stuff and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't understand what they're doing here or whatever.
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. The chemistry, the physics, yeah, for
Hmm.
sure. But yeah, a lot of people don't. Some of the things we assume that is common knowledge is really not common knowledge.
Yeah,
That's
it's not
true.
really. Yeah, because I was in the
Yeah.
theater watching it and people were like talking to other people when they were on some of the scenes and they're like, what does this mean, or like what was that supposed to be, and I'm just like like come on, like I get it, not everyone studies things like I do, but it kind of hurts you a little bit
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, that's a whole different topic on education sense.
Do you think that we can bring that up? We can breach that subject. Do you think that we're not focusing enough on STEM in this country?
Yeah, I think we're not focusing. I think there's a big push to do it, but you're only seeing it in the communities where possibly like Intel is, or down in Palo Alto or
Hmm.
California, or places where people who work in the STEM programs and have affluence can actually um, put STEM programs in their communities a little bit better, which is, I mean, logically what's going to happen. But I definitely think we focus too much on the social sciences and not on STEM programs.
Hmm.
We're too concerned with how everyone feels, and
Yeah,
everyone's going to feel like crap if they actually don't know about the STEM programs. But yeah, I mean, it's good that they're breaching some things that are relationally and socially not the best, but I think sometimes we camp on it a little too long, like it's,
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
you can't go your entire life studying how what you say makes people feel. I mean, that's just not how you're not gonna get anything done if
Yeah,
you worry about every single little word. But being as said, there's tons of stuff that people say that's wrong, of course. But
definitely. Yeah.
I think that I grew up in a more in the medical aspect, but heavy into all science because both my parents worked in the medical field growing up.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
I mean, by the time I was 12, pretty much, I knew like almost the entire gross anatomy of the human body type stuff. So
that's really cool.
I've always been heavy into that, and I'm trying to get my kids into that. But that's why I asked if you thought it would, because obviously here in the U.S. we focus more on testing, we don't focus on
Mm.
learning.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something I
Yeah,
feel should be changed.
the Finnish schools are the ideal schools in my opinion. The way that they teach without testing, and the way that they teach, I mean, I believe Elon's school at Astra has used the same way. I mean, he's teaching first principles, but he's also it's very similar, I think, the way the Finnish schools have set things up. They
Mhm.
take a topic and they let the children explore it, and there's some private schools that definitely do it, in charter schools. But yeah, I think the testing is a little neurotic. I think it's, if we're talking about how people feel, ironically enough, that's not helping.
Yeah.
But I think when the light goes on and the love of learning is there, you should definitely pour into it and let a child's mind just gather as much as they can. And for some reason, we don't focus on that. Maybe it's just because we were trying to mass educate too many people and we just saw a lot of illiteracy a long time ago,
Mhm.
but things have evolved and changed. Even the classical forms of teaching, when they used to teach Greek and Latin, like many of the older US presidents were taught all those forms. But our education is definitely not what it should be. It's really subpar, sadly, in general.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely have our great schools, and people from all over the world come here for certain schools.
Yeah,
But the majority
yeah,
of
universities.
yeah, I mean, the majority of elementary schools and middle schools, you wouldn't be saying that same thing. So I think it is kind of sad
Yeah.
when because I was stationed in Japan for 3 years when I was in the military, and the way you see that
Oh wow.
their school is done in like the early grades, like for what we consider elementary and middle school, is
Hmm.
completely different than the way we work
Yeah.
things here. I mean, they were doing
Yeah.
math. They were doing math that my kids aren't even doing right now at the same age that they are when I was there 10 years ago. So it's crazy.
Yeah. It's sad. And yeah, Japan's really cool. Clean their own classes. There's a whole lot of ownership in their education. And they're like the German schools and a few other schools where they have to teach. It's like what, 4 6 years where they teach up to a big test, and then it
Mhm.
kind of divides the children, okay, and then they move into a certain area what their strong suit is.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said too about the way that they do the whole making them clean the classroom type thing because it forces, ownership of their space in that area. So, every place has their own thing. And
Yeah, yeah,
I'm a huge patriot. I was in the military for 6 years. So I'm all about like US, woohoo, go us. But at the same time, we could learn some
yeah.
things from other places for sure.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because they're in close quarters. I mean, Japan lost so much face when MacArthur came in during World War II.
Hmm.
That was a whole different identity crisis for them, and you saw a lot of them. I mean, that's where anime really ramped up, and you see them trying to refigure out who they were. But yeah, Japan, they're definitely mindful. That's for sure of their person and what they do and what they're part of. But yeah, we could learn some more things. It's interesting. I was talking to someone and they said that the children at young ages still walk to school there. And I
They
walked
do,
to
yeah.
school, I think, starting in first grade, like a quarter of a mile all the time. Because everybody did. All the kids just walked to school or rode our bikes. But these days, nobody does that.
No, they're too worried about kids getting snatched, rightfully so, because people are losing their minds and doing crazy stuff. But yeah,
Yeah, it
they
used to be like when we were little, like you'd see a kid on a milk carton and you'd be like, oh my gosh, the whole nation would know about it. Now it's like, here's another ad of another kid that disappeared. And everyone's like, oh, that's really sad. But I saw a different kid last week. There's so many children.
yeah. Yeah, I remember all those kids on the milk carton things in elementary school, and that's, wasn't that long ago, relatively speaking. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I was, like I said, I was there for 3 years, so I saw all these kids walking to school, and they walk about, I don't know, they probably walk 2 or 3 kilometers to school,
Yeah.
and every single day. But they do something that I think is not advised. So when they cross the street, they do what we affectionately call throwing the shark up. So they put their hands on their head like this, and that means they're walking across the street, and they
Yeah.
just go. They don't wait for traffic to stop. They're
Wow. So
just like,
they just wow. They're like
yeah.
little ducklings. They're like, we're going, and everyone's like, oh, put your brakes on. That's
I mean,
crazy.
that's what they
I
teach you when
wonder
you
what the
go to
rates of
school
children
there.
getting hit by vehicles are.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean that's what they
Wow.
teach you when you're
But people are
driving
still
there
mindful.
to
So
learn
I'm
about it. So
drivers in Japan are probably just as mindful as of the children, just because they're just such a mindful culture. Like every little thing has so much depth and meaning to it.
hmm yeah, I'll tell you, you want to see the most respectful culture you've ever seen in your life. Go there and spend some time there. That's it was weird
Yeah.
coming from the place I was before that to there. And my friend actually was walking down the street with his wife to go try and find a place. They had no idea where they were going. And people just picked him
Yeah.
up on the side of the road and volunteered to drive him there. So, I mean, it's
Oh wow.
the whole different culture there for sure.
They're definitely the what is it? The Western individuality versus the Eastern groupthink. They're definitely
Hmm.
in a groupthink where they consider the group. I mean, I've watched some of them when they go out to eat, like some of the students, foreign exchange students that come like college age in the States, and they'll all sit at a table and who is the unspoken leader, because they don't always point out people. It's interesting. There's like this
Hmm.
kind of passive aggressive sidestepping to the side kind of thing where they acknowledge things. The unspoken leader will make the decision for the meals for everybody as a group. Like it was really interesting where we would be like complaining or whining or even complaining about someone else's meal. Like, why did you get that?
Hmm.
Like, we're just so different.
Yeah, we're a complete 180 from them for most things, I'd imagine, for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it was a real
definitely.
interesting place to go to, and I mean, of course, I went and saw the what they call the peace parks, which is where they had
Uh,
the atomic bombs released and
yeah,
stuff like that. And it's it's an interesting thing to be able to go see, and you see what these
yeah,
things have done, you know, regarding that.
yeah.
But what's
That's
also another
Oppenheimer. Yeah.
interesting is you could see marks from World War II still there on the Navy base. So
Hmm.
they actually,
That's
these
interesting.
buildings, they saved most of the buildings, and you can see like shrapnel marks from us dropping bombs and things on it from back in World War II.
Wow.
So there's still even a lot of history being saved around there, which is awesome.
That is really cool. It is really crazy. It's crazy to think that there's actually Japanese soldiers out on islands for like
Hmm.
a decade after Japan. I'm like, they were so sworn to the emperor. It's just crazy how they were out there. Just we're gonna be okay. Like
Devotion,
that's wild.
devotion to a
Yeah,
cause,
yeah.
But that's one thing that, since we're speaking about space, is that a lot of people don't know is there's actually a mission control in Japan that
Oh,
the ISS speaks to, because there's a module on the ISS, the International Space Station, for anyone who doesn't know what that means. And so each module has its country of origin.
hmm.
And Japan has one, Russia obviously has a big section, and then US and Italy and a few other things kind of combined. But
So the Axis powers. I mean, except Russian isn't. So, but
yeah,
I
pretty
see
much,
the
I
bigger
guess.
countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, every time the ISS is going around the Earth in different orbits, they talk to their respective
Oh,
controls when they're over those areas. That way, they don't lose communication.
that is really cool. Is it in Okinawa off of a military base, or is it?
I'm trying to recall where exactly it is. I think it's in one of the southern islands for sure,
Yeah,
but I don't recall, because I know they launch off of one of the southern islands, but I don't
that's
recall
cool.
exactly where their mission control is. But
Yeah, that's really cool.
yeah, Russia has obviously Moscow, then we have Houston. So
Yeah, they launch rockets in Kazakhstan too, right? That's like where a lot of the.
yeah, they launch off of Baikonur in Kazakhstan.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the Cosmodrome, as they call it.
yeah. I'd love to go to Kazakhstan. That'd be so cool.
I've been close to that area before, but not in Russia
Nice.
or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the areas I was in Afghanistan, you wouldn't want to go to. So
No, no. Afghanistan is a whole different culture. I don't want to go. I mean, I'm sure they're lovely, but mm,
I met
part of the
some,
old Silk Road. It sounds
yeah,
really cool, like cool old culture.
I met some awesome people when I was there, but also not so awesome people. So there's that.
Yeah, you guys were definitely not like, yeah, when you're military.
Yeah, it is what it is. That's what you get paid going there for, depending on what your job, I
Yeah.
guess,
Well,
is.
thank you for serving. That would be hard. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I like to thank all the people who, went there and didn't come back, because I'm lucky in that aspect. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But that's how I look at it. Is I thank them, and people think people are still here, obviously. But um, so I had another question while we're on this. We spoke about earlier private industry. So I can
Mhm.
guess who your favorite company would be as far as space is concerned, but
Right.
but can you speak as to why
Yeah.
you follow the company that you do versus any others?
I just think because it was kind of the underdog, the like the strong, like way to go underdog. And because Elon is just so efficient in what he does, and watching the rockets land, the rocket boosters, you just know that what's coming from them is some great innovation that hasn't been seen before. And that if you're gonna root for somebody, he definitely is. It's just exciting to watch what he does. And I mean SpaceX does in general. And they've got something good going on. And the other companies, I hope they do really well too. I don't know, I'm not as thoroughly versed or following them all
Mm-hmm.
completely. I mean, Richard Branson is really cool too. He's got some great ideas with Virgin Galactic, and then that you've got Jeff Bezos doing Amazon. I'm not quite sure how much passion Jeff has. I haven't researched that, but there is a lot of joking.
It's really hard to tell, because they just keep everything so secretive, whereas like we're used to NASA stuff, or especially SpaceX stuff, being literally out in the open in a tent, where everybody
Yeah,
can see it. So it's kind of hard to know, because they just keep everything secret.
yeah, yeah. So true.
Because they have a whole facility at the Cape being built right now. Blue Origin does, for the whole New Glenn rocket and all that, and
Interesting.
it's a huge facility, but you hardly see anything ever coming out of it, because it's
Wow.
so locked down. You know,
Wonder what they're paying for their facility.
I have
Because they're probably
no
renting
idea.
it from NASA, right?
I imagine the space, yeah, but I think they built a whole new building.
They did. I think. Well, SpaceX is leasing the ground at launch site 39 for it was like $1. It was dirt cheap.
Hmm.
But I mean, they have to rebuild it all. I mean,
Yeah,
you still got to put all back into it. It's like a
they had to
landlord, and
they had to completely rebuild the entire launch pad to support, super heavy and all that. So yeah.
it's cool. Yeah.
Have you seen a SpaceX launch or
Oh
anything in
yeah.
person yet?
Not in person. No, I wish I had in person. I almost so we went to the shareholder meeting, or I did, um, 2019, I mean, last year, and
Mhm.
the Vandenberg launch was, like I think it was, like, a day or 2 after it, and it was down the coast because we were in Palo Alto, and I was, like, so tempted to, like, get a car and just go down there and see it because it would have been a little bit closer, but I haven't seen one live. I mean, Cape Canaveral would be ideal to go there and see it, but I don't
That's
know.
quite a
You
travel
should
from the West
apply for
Coast,
those.
though.
Yeah. I mean, I've done travel like that, but you
Mhm.
should apply for those NASA, social medias, those people who win, because some of those
Yeah.
accounts aren't that big that actually win.
Yeah, I've thought about doing it. I did do the one for the um, ULA launch that
Oh,
was
wow.
going to be happening, but I don't think that that event obviously will be happening now because it's supposed to be like early April, I believe. So that's probably not going to be happening, obviously.
Yeah, there's a huge cause and effect with everything going on, it's wild. Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
y
I'd love to do one of those NASA social things. I think it'd be awesome. They get to go in certain areas I've never been in before, so that's one main reason why I'd love to do that.
yeah, yeah, I mean, I know people that are in SpaceX, and I know people that work in other areas of the aerospace that they used to go to the, launches for the, uh, space shuttle and stuff like that, but I'm like, "Maybe they could help me get in?" I don't know. I
Might
mean,
be
I
able
could
to.
ask Elon, I suppose. I know. I just don't wanna burden the poor guy. It's like, he's not our, like, genie. We don't just rub him like, "Hey, Elon, come on."
Yo,
But
Elon,
yeah.
give me some tickets to your mission control there in Orlando.
I mean, some of us, I'm sure, are a little bit more forward, but I just wanna respect the man. He's so incredibly busy.
Yeah, I don't
But
think
yeah,
people understand how busy he probably really is every single day. So you guys got a unique
yeah.
insight into that and to being postponed in your interview, right?
Yeah, I mean, we just did that interview or the podcast with May and Tuska, and we were sitting there having lunch with them before the podcast, and Tuska or May goes, I know, she looks at Tuska, I don't even get 5 hours on a Saturday with Elon. Do you get 5 hours? She's like, oh, and it was funny, but she said after the podcast with Elon, she stood up because she was in the background. She's like, I learned things about Elon I didn't even know, which is just humbling and really cool that he gave us the time to actually open up and share. And he wasn't doing it just for us. It just happened to be the right timing, and we
Hmm.
happened to be in the right place. And I know that he's interacted with a few of us, so I think there's more to trust there to some degree. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, it was really cool.
I knew that he wouldn't get like burned in a way that he wouldn't want to be portrayed, obviously. So I'm sure that
Yeah,
that
we weren't
helped.
gonna write a book and then tell him, screw you. Like, we don't care what you think about it anyways.
Yeah.
No, we're not out for the money, and we're not out for the prestige. And no, that's not why we did it.
Yeah, but if you ever do get the chance, I would definitely 100% recommend seeing it in person because I mean, as awesome as like the cinematography they use and all these things
Yeah.
that they're kind of becoming known for with launches, seeing it in person is just it's just a whole different thing.
Yeah, that would be so cool. I love the sound when they're filling it up with the
Hmm.
liquid oxygen. That is so cool. And like they were not using it, and so many of us were like, we want to hear the sound, like the like it when it's filling up, it sounds so cool. Yeah, being in person would definitely be mind blowing. It would definitely be a lot louder too.
Yeah, it'd be a lot louder. I mean, if you I don't know like your situation obviously, but if you had the ability and this issue with the whole pandemic wasn't happening, the first commercial crew launch in May would be like an awesome thing to go see. But I don't obviously know if that's in your realm of ability. But
I would love to see that. I mean, I would go in a heartbeat. Um, but I don't. I have a feeling that's going to be pretty guarded, just because I don't know if it's going to be open to the public as much. I mean, maybe from afar, but I imagine there's going to be a lot of higher ranking personnel that are going to be there to attend that, just because it's going to be so historical, and
yeah,
it's going to be so cool.
they'll probably have it like the first Falcon Heavy launch where they'll sell like packages for you to be able to get as close as they like allow. Which for us, we
Yeah.
we we were there and you could be 3 miles away, which is close if you weren't like media that you could get,
Yeah.
and it was still like very, very close. You know, you can't get much closer than that without, you know, being killed by sound. So there's that, you know.
Yeah. That sounds about right. That's so cool. I mean, I almost went. I almost had a girlfriend who was gonna come pick me up to go to one of them, but it didn't work out. But that would be so cool.
Yeah, I think that one or the first actual like super heavy launch, like Starship, super heavy and mix. I think those that one or that one would be like the ones you'd really want to go to. I mean, if you want to go to a less packed one, I'd probably just go to
Starship.
like a regular launch. But you know, you want to go to like the big ones, obviously.
Gosh, I think I'm going to go to Starship. That's just wild. I don't know how you could not be a fan of SpaceX or even be on Twitter to the degree we are and watch Elon and all that he's been doing and going through, or SpaceX, and not be there for Starship. That's going to be wild. Like,
Yeah, I am also debating whether they're going to launch the first one out of the Cape, anyways. They might do the first
mm,
one out of Texas at the Boca Chica site, you know.
that's cool.
So
Yeah.
who's to know? I mean, probably for historical reasons, they'll probably do it at the Cape, but they could very well just do it from Texas and have this huge rocket lifting off in the middle of, you know, a whole bunch of cows and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. They're in the process of purchasing most of those properties, I think. Yeah. But that would be so cool. Yeah, Boca Chica, I think, would definitely be a cool place for space. But I now admire that they launched the first one from
Hmm.
Cape Canaveral just because that's the way it works.
Yeah, I mean that's just where you launch rockets from. So you know,
Yeah. They're not, yeah, definitely.
I got to like most things being in Orlando here. I got to witness the ULA launch that happened today for Space Force, which was the first one since Space
Wow.
Force was designated. Um,
Wow.
Pretty much like anywhere in Florida, you can see a launch just because we're so flat here, and you know it's as at about 30 seconds of flight, you can see it almost anywhere. So we're pretty lucky
Wow,
in that
that's cool.
instance. But
And sound too, you can hear the
no, you can't really hear the sound. It's too far away. It's about 45 minutes from where I live. If I was probably
hmm,
about if I was about 20 minutes closer, you might be able to hear it. But yeah, no, it's too
yeah,
far. It's too far by the time it gets up in the air when we can see it.
that is really cool. That's very cool. Lucky you. Super
Yeah.
cool.
I just, lucky to be born here, I guess. The
Yeah.
disadvantages. You're my second female guest that I've had on the show so
Oh,
far.
nice.
It's been men that I've been having. Danielle was the first one. I made her answer a question that had to represent for all women. So
Who is Danielle?
yeah,
She's sweet, great girl.
yeah. We had a awesome conversation. I think a lot about the psychology of space travel and how that like affects the human mind. And I asked her a few questions based
Yeah,
on
that's a good conversation.
like women in science, and I figured I'd kind of propose a similar question to you. The Russians were the first ones to launch a woman into space, and
Hmm.
even then, the closest one was 20 years after that. But a
Yeah.
a female astronaut for the United States has the most time in space, like out of anybody. She has the
Wow.
most consecutive time.
That's
So,
impressive.
so do you feel that that's a lot of people probably don't know her name just because they don't follow, astronauts to space. Do you think that like STEM regarding things like that should be like focused more towards women so they know these things are happening,
Mm.
or how do you feel about like the whole astronaut corps and women in space and things?
Oh, so I think it's a great thing. I was reading back when Neil Armstrong and were astronauts, just the idea of having women in there was very similar, like the military. And then there was just ideas of the anatomy of women and the way they function in
Hmm.
space, and even that was quite clueless to the
Very,
astronauts and the
yeah.
men putting the program together, as if women be very detrimental in the way that their physiology worked.
Hmm.
So that was really fascinating in itself. But no, I think that there definitely should be. I mean, you should show women and girls that women are out there for sure. I mean, I'm I mean, there's so much to into this, but yeah, it definitely should be shown. I mean, the women who wrote the code for the space shuttle, I don't even know the lady's name. She was like a mathematician coder, and she was just brilliant. I mean, she just passed away this last year.
Katherine
There should
Johnson.
be it definitely, yeah, there definitely should be more shown. Just how much women help carry the load. I mean, like, even, I don't know, different scientists like Antoine Lavoisier, who discovered internal like combustion. His wife,
Mhm.
Marie Lavoisier, did most of. She was brilliant, and she was an artist, and she did most of the translations for his work, so that other countries could actually give him credence. But yeah, I think women were a supplemental role. They were a auxiliary role a lot in the
Mhm.
past, but I think women are stepping into, rightfully so, according to their giftings, to be fitted for the roles if it works out. I don't see any problem with it.
Yeah.
I think
No,
it's great, but
I definitely don't either.
yeah,
I think that it's in order to fully understand the biology effects of space travel, we need both sexes up there, right? We can't have half the puzzle and think we're going to solve
yes,
it. So we need to be,
yeah,
in conjunction doing these same studies
yeah.
together, which I think we're getting a lot better at that, obviously.
Yeah, the lady that Barbara Barrett, the one that's in charge of the Space Force, she's the, I don't know, lieutenant secretary or whatever. I
Mhm.
actually have met her. Like, my sister works with her husband really closely, but she's Spitfire. She flew for the Air Force for years,
Mhm.
and then she was a cosmonaut for Russia. But women actually do better in G-force, according to studies. Their bodies, for some reason, because it's just their physiology. Every when the blood sucks in and goes back out, their bodies just
Mhm.
seem to do better with it. It's interesting, and I know that G isn't always something that you're going to use in space or being shot off, but then there's different things. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good thing. We definitely should see. I mean, there's the whole density of your bones and how long they'll last, and men with their muscle and their physiology usually have a denser uh, base to go off of,
Mhm.
and women don't. So I think osteoporosis would definitely be a huge problem for more of a majority of women than not. So
Yeah, I think there's, definitely we're all biologically different, obviously, between the
yeah,
sexes and then even between male versus male or female versus female.
yep,
So there's definitely a huge variations of things we need to understand, which we don't yet.
yeah.
Did you ever see Scott Kelly's Year in Space documentary and all that?
I saw some of it, but it was fascinating, the disorientation in the bone and the cells and the orientation, just how much the cells and the mitosis require gravity just to have a bearing in the bodies. I don't know. They're still trying to figure out how to make the artificial gravity
Yeah,
right? So
they
the
haven't done it
centrifuges
yet,
that force.
really. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think they've
I mean,
done
that's what Star
small
Trek is all
scale.
about.
Yeah, I think they've done small scale tests. Back when like Skylab was a thing before Mirror and all that, where they try and like spin it and see. And even Mirror, I think they would kind of do like small rotations in it. But
Yeah,
yeah, there hasn't been like a ship like every sci-fi movie where it just spins and people are able to walk like normal. So hopefully one day.
yeah. You're really strong, like probably cobalt kind of magnet or something like that. But I don't know. I don't know. There's so many different theories. We're definitely not there yet. So,
No, but hopefully, I don't know, 100 years or so, maybe we'll have solved that problem, and it'll enable us to be
yeah.
out there.
Yeah, let's hope it doesn't take another 100 years. Let's hope that Elon gets on the moon. I mean, SpaceX or whoever. That's just mind-boggling. But
Mhm.
yeah.
So speaking about that, do you think that the 2024 mission to Mars will happen by then?
Hmm. I think this pandemic has probably thrown a wrench in a lot of things. I think Elon's just looking at efficiency of numbers and workers and moving forward and testing, because not only are his workers not producing as much, and I know it's just a short window, but we don't know the cause and effect of the recession for the year
Mhm.
on out or few years. I think Elon will still push for it, and he's extremely gifted at finding avenues to make things happen. Um, I think this Crew Dragon mission and the way NASA looks at it will be a big thing. And I think also what you were saying about the NASA and the what is it, the Artemis program or whatever, they're looking at
Mhm.
all the, they're tearing it apart and looking at it. I think the fact that they're being so finicky or like tight about that is kind of a red flag. We're just trying to get up there and we're looking at a program and like, I don't know, like if they keep doing that, it's going to be a problem. But
Yeah.
I wish Elon could just go. I wish SpaceX could just go, but we have to go through all these different avenues. So,
Yeah, it all has to be because
and
right
someone's going to
now,
die,
yeah, yeah, that's the big thing.
and someone's going to go, oh no, you can't go.
I've always said that, like, everybody like who said they want to go to Mars and all that, which I think it's a lot less than people actually think people would want to go when they look at what it take to get there
Yeah.
and your likelihood of impending
Yeah.
death or cancer most likely is very high. So
Yeah. We're going to be the monkeys for sure. And we may not survive. A lot of us probably won't survive. And hopefully people aren't up in arms just because a highly trained astronaut that we put so much into has died, because it's going to happen and they know it's going to happen. They wouldn't be doing it unless they knew that. But it's the first pioneer. You're blazing a trail and it's not going to be easy, you know.
yeah, someone's got to, you know, do it just to see what happens pretty much. You know, we don't really know until we go. So,
Yep.
but
Yep.
speaking on that, do you think that a lot of people, let's say we've done 10 missions to Mars. Let's just say that's an arbitrary number. We've done 10 missions. They've all gone flawlessly. Nothing as bad has happened. Do you think that then would inspire a bunch of people to go? Or do you think it'd still just be a very niche amount of individuals who would actually make that trek?
I think it would definitely inspire people to go. I don't know if the window for people to go would be there. I actually think the military would be all over it, in my personal opinion. Um, yeah, I think people would want to go. I really hope there's some kind of psychological screening for psychopaths and stuff like that not going. I think I've had a few threads on Twitter with people about this, like you don't, there's certain people that you don't want going, and then like creating a mutiny on the colony or on the
Mhm.
ride there, you know. Yeah, that would be a nightmare.
Yeah, that would be. That's actually interesting that you brought that up. On the first episode of this, I was speaking with, I guess, Chris, who goes by the Los Angeles Tesla handle. Um,
Uh-huh.
he was talking about, you know, the whole like different colonies and things, and I proposed this question to him. I said, do you think that once a colony on Mars is established, they would become independent from the US or the world, Earth, I guess?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I'm sure there's countries that are like would totally vie for that. I've had conversations with people about that one too. It's gonna have to incorporate, it's gonna have to make its own laws. I think we talked with Elon a little bit about this on the podcast. And what would be ideal. I mean, he does have some great ideas on what would be ideal, but unfortunately, he probably won't be the only player, so
Hmm.
it won't be all up to him. And the fact that NASA is already involved makes it a government entity that kind of lays down some rules with that. But I mean, I like, we were joking about people who created mutiny on the Mars colony. I'm like, what are you gonna do? Get mad at people like because things aren't going right? You're gonna run off in the middle of Mars and like create your own like new
Yeah, right.
colony? Good luck with that. Like,
Hope you find a lava tube and survive in it without any
yeah,
supplies. You know?
it's like a brat. You throw your fit and come back when you need oxygen. Like,
Yeah, you got about 6 hours, and then you're
yeah.
gonna.
Hope you have enough grub to eat.
Yeah, because I think that Mars is it will be so heavily, you know, reliant on us to send supplies that even if they
Yeah.
wanted to, they wouldn't be able to like what are you gonna do? Force their hand? Like, oh, okay, they'd let you probably die if you did something crazy over there. But when you get
Yeah.
out to like past Jupiter, to say if we're like really exploring in the solar system, I think it'll be necessary for them to become independent to an extent because even
Yeah.
Mars is it's a 14-minute transmission window, right?
Yeah.
So that's almost half an hour of waiting to get one message.
Yeah. That is really crazy. Yeah. I think that there will be colonies on Mars that are definitely set up as their own entities that won't be government related whatsoever. So those, I think after the first establishments go down, maybe one or two, that those will probably start up, hopefully, private industry, but I mean, most of the money comes from the governments,
Mhm.
so I don't know. It'd be really cool. The movies make it look like it's really cool, you know?
Yeah, it'll
But
be a struggle though. It'll be a struggle for sure.
yeah. I mean, there's gonna be people that either have to sign over waiver their rights, nationals of whatever countries to go to Mars, possibly, because you can't go there and say, "Well, I'm an American and I get this." It'll be like, "No, you're
Yeah.
like here, and this is the way it works because it's die or survive kind of thing."
Yeah, pretty sure Mars doesn't care what planet you're or what country you're from. It's just like, yeah, I'll kill you in about a minute
Yeah,
if you can't hold your breath.
yeah,
So, it is what it is.
yeah. I mean, people. It'll be like you read the stories of people summiting Everest, and
Hmm.
if you're not pulling your load, like you are dead weight, literally on the line, and I think Mars will be probably like that. And I think people have to come to the reality that they're sworn to this surviving group thing, which I think will be hard because people will be having mental breakdowns, people will be having physical breakdowns, and the stress of realizing you
Hmm.
can't pull your load would definitely be more stressful. But maybe there'll be some kind of mercy kind of thing going on somewhere. I don't know. Maybe you can go into food instead of working like labor. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's gonna private industry. I think will be huge there though, because all the things that are gonna be needed just for survival. I mean, one Starship launch
Yeah.
or one, SLS launch isn't gonna sustain people for years and years and years. So it's definitely gonna need, raw
Yeah.
materials to be mined. There's gonna be workforce that's needed, like you said. So there's gonna be all types of stuff that's gonna need to go there. I just hope that there's
Go
like
ahead.
the McDonald's of Mars doesn't happen.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it probably will. It's like, oh god, there's so many bad movies off that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think I asked Elon that question. It got him in hot water because everyone's like, ah, it's socialism, it's communism, or it's forced. Oh, it's no, it's indentured servitude. Like
Hmm.
everyone who goes is going to be an indentured servant. And I'm like, oh gosh, like they're like, we're not going to go. That's bad. Like you're just a corporate guy who wants to indenture people to do your thing, like because they can't pay to go, and so they can work it off. And I'm like, well, you work off your loans right now, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a mortgage, you're working for the bank to own your house. That's and you boil it down.
Yep.
So it's a somewhat similar concept. But
Just the window options of work are a lot limited on Mars, and you hopefully are not that dim-witted to go and all of a sudden realize like you're in that predicament. But
yeah, because I think honestly the first few missions that you're not going to come back because they're just not going to have the
no,
facilities
probably not.
built to refuel and do the whole Sabatier process there, to make fuel on Mars, which he wants to do.
Yeah,
So the first probably three missions, maybe even up to five, like you're going and that's it. Say goodbye to everybody and everything you love because there's no coming back
yeah,
from that.
yeah, definitely.
And that's assuming that everyone actually survives. Which, I mean, I don't want to be like fatalistic and think that that's, but I'd probably say 20% maybe won't survive some X amount of time on the planet there.
Man, can you imagine if coronavirus went on the ship? Like just something like coronavirus just shows up mid-flight. That would be so awful.
Yeah, that would be like, well, the ship crash landed, because there was nobody left on it. That would be the worst thing for space travel.
Yeah. Well, the sanitation has to be so good on the ship, and like people really have to practice for years ahead of time, just like learning how to do with minimal everything and
Hmm.
self-sanitizing. But
Yeah, and that's something that actually one with this virus we have going around right now, it's really showing people like what isolation, if you want to even call it that, isolation is. Do you think that enough people are strong-willed to even want to make a 9-month journey one way?
man, you have to really want to go. I think that's like any career or the endeavor that you do in life. Like you won't see it all the way through if you really didn't want to do it. That's why people are saying, don't choose something just for money, do something that you love, because you
Mhm.
will never be happy. So if they're going to be 9 months in that ship, they better really love space and really want to go, because I don't think any amount of pay is going to make them want to stay on that ship after 9 months. They're going to be going, why am I here?
Yeah, because you can't just, which I was speaking about this with someone, I can't recall right now who, but it was on Twitter. We were kind of discussing things after I posted something about space the other day. And on the space station, they recycle all water on there. You know, your sweat, humidity
Yeah.
in the air, your urine, everything's
Yeah,
recycled. So there's these things that people have to realize is nuance of space travel. You better get used to it.
definitely. Yeah, I know those ones. That's, ugh. I mean, it's gross when you think about it, but it is what it is. But yeah, it makes you think of those sci-fi movies like Dune or Waterworld, where they're like,
Hmm.
it's water's so important. Yeah.
Yeah, the stuff of life, as they say.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
so we were speaking about the virus. I figured I'd kind of I think that there's been some. I I apologize for all the people who have died from this, but there's been some interesting climate
Yeah.
data coming from this as to being there hasn't been as many people outside. Um, and the only reason we understand our climate right now is because of satellites and things we have in space. Do you have kind of like an opinion on what we've seen thus far with like the climate since this whole pandemic's been happening?
You're talking about the air and the CO2 and everything.
Yeah.
Just how over China, like you completely like, well, I guess it shows what we can do if we stop running cars as much on all of, these ICE internal combustion engines, and how fast things get cleaned up in the air, for sure. That it is possible in a quick turnaround, actually. Um, I mean, I haven't seen the weather cycle around the globe and how it's actually affected, like, because I know it affects the recycling of the water and the rain cycle, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really cool. I think Elon just liked a tweet from Third Row that talked about how, can you imagine, it was showing how clean the air was. And they were saying, what if everyone just switched over to clean EVs instead of went back to their
Mm-hmm.
internal combustion engines? Like, we could keep the air like this, but that obviously is not going to happen. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many industrial groups that are burning through coal and things like that. But
As much as I'd like it to happen, it's just not realistic, you know, for the way the world is today, I guess, at least for the people who aren't EV educated. I don't know if that's a proper term, but
yeah.
so there has been a lot of interesting views on space, especially relating to climate and
Hmm.
whether certain things are real or fake or have you ever encountered anything like that with any of the stuff you've spoken about online or anything?
So there's a bunch of weirdos online. Some of them are really weird. Yeah, you get people who don't believe the numbers, but I mean, obviously, haven't seen the glacier drills down and how it's affected over the decades. It's not a good thing. I don't know how people can think you can just pollute this stuff. I mean, you can't sit in your garage with your car running, like, and I know it's like a small area, but it's just not good. There is people that are climate change deniers, and I usually don't interact with them just because their mind is so made up and they just want to fight. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't see a point in really going that direction with them. But if they, I think I don't understand why they're not reading more studies, or why they're not seeing like the glaciers that are drilled down. I don't know. People are strange. It's like that guy that got in the rocket just to see the horizon, to see if the Earth was curved, and it was a
Mm-hmm.
dumb idea. It was a Darwin Award, and he's dead. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
unfortunately,
Such
yeah.
skeptics.
I've had the same. I try not to engage with people that are like space deniers or globe deniers or the thousand other thought processes that are out there. But there's just certain things sometimes that I can't abide by, I guess, you know, and it makes me just have to say something against it. But I think staying away from those conversations most of the
Yeah.
time is good, but sometimes people just need to actually know the facts, and you know, it's helpful, but not all the time, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
definitely. I don't know. There's a lot of people I don't engage.
yeah, you have to sometimes, especially, the higher like profile type like following you have, then the more it's concerned with that, right? So
I think I've indulged maybe 3 times, and I mean, I've had people DM me, they're like, "Don't indulge." I'm like, "I've tried so hard for so long, like, this person just got to me." Like, I had to say something, like, "I'm only human," like, yeah, I mean, that's unfortunate, yeah, but, yeah, there's definitely some people it's better just to mute them or ignore them. Well, I have had to
mhm.
block a few, but I don't like blocking people, but when they keep on coming at me after everything, you're like, "I need to turn you off." So,
That's all you can do, right? You gotta protect yourself over anything else. So,
yeah, peace of mind.
but I'd really like to thank you for your time this evening, speaking with me about my favorite subject, which is space and everything related to that.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
there
thanks,
anything?
Michael, for having me on.
Yeah, appreciate it. Is there anything that we can look forward to coming from you? Anything that you'd want people to know about?
From me, I mean, we were gonna go to the shareholder meeting and sit on 3rd row, but I don't even know if we're gonna be doing that anymore live. That's probably gonna be I mean, it's gonna be live, but I don't even know if people are gonna be able to attend that with everything going on. Just, I don't know, that's a big question. Well, I think I wanna start doing videos, so when the weather's a little bit nicer, I probably will be doing more some Tesla videos. Definitely, that'll be something I'll be doing. The podcast has been really cool. It's been a learning experience, and I've
Mhm.
enjoyed that for sure. It's it's a good thing. It's been a blessing. It's been very humbling and cool. But nothing in particular that I can think of. I'm not always good with that question. My grandma will call me. She's like, "What's new?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, grandma, what's new? I don't know."
Yeah, no, I understand it. It is what it is, But
Yeah,
like I said, I definitely appreciate you taking the time to be on, and I hope that maybe one day you could be on another episode of this.
definitely. It was fun. Thank you, Michael.